So step on down to the rig, untie the rig from the weight, pull the weight away, and retie the articulation rings back together. Next step is to put the lines into the tail pocket. Go ahead and have a seat on top of the canopy. Open up that tail pocket. We're going to do the locking stow, which is in between the tail pocket and the canopy itself. So you'll find a hole in between the two. There's a rubber band in there. Just go ahead and take one, if necessary, 2 wraps. Not too much of the line sticking out past that rubber band. You don't want to get a super huge bite on it. And tuck that right up in underneath the tail pocket. Bring those lines up into the upper corners of the tail pocket. And if you see, it's just a continuous motion, keeping the lines even, keeping the slack out, and pulling those lines up one hand at a time. You want those loops to get just slightly narrower on each consecutive figure 8, all the way up until the links are just underneath the bottom of the tail pocket. Neaten that up if you have to. Close the Velcro on the tail pocket. Mating the Velcro fully. You don't want your lines falling out of the tail pocket prematurely. Okay, now that you've got the Velcro mated, you go ahead and just pull those risers out to the side of the tail pocket with the right rears on the outside. Now I'll show you a close-up of that Velcro mating. You want to start in the corner there, work towards the inside, and then run that Velcro up, fully mating it on the outside. On the other side as well, you want to start right in that bottom corner, mate the Velcro fully, and right on up the side there. Okay, next stage, canopy into the rig. You want to go ahead and step on the links very lightly. Move those risers up on top of the top flap. Bring that warning label just up to the top. Pull the main lift webs out to the outside. That'll make a nice little cradle for the canopy once it goes into the rig. Okay, you want to grab the lines just above the slider bumpers and grab the outside of the tail pocket and just bring that canopy down to the bottom, pushing that tail pocket all the way into the bottom of the container. We're going to do the first fold now, so you grab the ears of the canopy, put your other hand at the top of the tail pocket, bring the canopy up vertically, then go ahead and fold it back on itself. Move the bridle out of the way. Then you want to push the toggles to the inside. You want them facing towards the inside. This will help to prevent them from coming unstowed. Then you want to just squish that fold together so it's narrow. We're going to neaten up the nose now. So move that center cell off out of the way. Take those outside 3, put a fold right up the middle. Bring it out to the outside, and then you're going to put your second fold on the outside of the canopy so that the nose ends up right up the middle. Slide it under the clamp, bring the center cell across, and slide that center cell underneath the clamp. You don't want to take the clamp off. You're just better off to open it up and slide the stuff under. If you take it off and put it back on, you might miss some stuff. Same thing on the other side, 2 folds so the nose ends up, the outside 3 end up facing inward, and then just go ahead and use the center cell to trap all that down. Okay, spread that center cell out, make a nice neat channel for the air to come into. Get ready to make that second fold. Want to move those toggles towards the inside of the rig and check out the seams. That is the bottom of the rig meeting with the sidewall of the rig. Those sidewalls need to be vertical, so you can't have the canopy any wider than those sidewalls. Okay, go ahead and put your hand down just below the bottom of the container. Grab the ears, bring that up vertically, get your arm out of the way, and lay that canopy down. You want to just narrow it up so it's within those seams that I showed you earlier. Get the bridle out of the way. Check, make sure that that bridle is right in the middle. Looks good. Go ahead and turn around. Put your knees on top of the canopy so we can go ahead and fill that bottom of the container out. It's really important that the bottom of the container is filled out so that we have tension against that bridle protector. Okay, we want the grommet lined up with the center seam of the canopy. Go ahead and remove the clamps, checking the tips, making sure the tips did not stay inside of the pack job. They love to do that. Contain the canopy while you bring that side flap over the canopy, lining up the grommets on that pin cover flap with the center seam. Go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Here's that different view. Pull those clamps out, check the tips. Make sure you got the tips. Now we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. We want to make that canopy no wider than that bottom seam. Now we're going to pull those side flaps together, not distorting the canopy at all, and bringing the bottom flap up. We're going to go ahead and thread that pull-up cord through the right side flap and then the left side flap. You can't mess this up because the pin cover flap is on the left side flap. So if you try and close that one first, it won't work.
The pin cover flap will be trapped in between the two flaps, and you'll see that it's almost impossible to do it, and it'll look funky, so you won't. Okay, let's go ahead and close that bottom pin now. We'll bring the bridle straight down, no twists in it, from the bridle attachment point to the pin. Feed that in through the closing loop. Take the pull-up cord and thread it underneath the pin, just like you do in skydiving, to prevent wear on the closing loop. Drag it underneath the pin so the pin is between the pull-up cord and the closing loop.
We're going to close the top flap now, so put the pull-up cord through the top closing loop. We're going to reach down inside of the container and neaten up the pack job. When you close the side flaps, it tends to fold up the sides of the pack job. You want to just reach in and sweep those downward, keeping it, basically putting it right back into the shape we had it before you close the side flap. Center out the bridle, make sure that the center cell is out of the way, and we're going to take the left ear, fold it right at the top of the rig, and fill out that empty spot in the rig. Okay, I'm pointing out the fat part of the pack job, and I'm poking at the hollow part. We're going to bring those ears right into that hollow part. It's more of a cosmetic thing than a functional thing. It just makes the rig look good to fill it out evenly. So just take each of those ears and fold them back respectively onto their side, and then you just take the center cell and keep it in the middle, keeping the bridle on top of everything as you close the pack job. Here's a close-up of how you want the bridle. If the pack job's underneath everything, it's going to burn it on the way out. So what you want to do is put the bridle on top of the pack job. Close that top flap. We're going to close the right side first and then the left side, the side with the pin closing cover flap on the second flap. That's the right side flap. There's not as much tension on this one, so you don't have to get your knee on top to keep that closing loop from pulling out. Keeping the bridle out of the way. Set that pin. Take the pull-up cord, put it underneath the pin to protect that loop. Here's a close-up of the bridle. You want to mate these two pieces of bridle together, the Velcro on the bridle, so that gives you slack above the pin. Go ahead and make those folds in the bridle as you close the pin cover flap. In, and then tuck the top of the pin cover flap into the top flap. We'll put the pull-up cord back into the pocket behind the main lift web on the left-hand side. Alright, that's put away. We're going to close the 3-ring covers. Want to check the assembly one more time right before you close it. Tuck that flap in there. Straighten everything up. Make sure everything looks really, really good. Same thing on the other side. One last check before you hide it. Close that cover up. All right, looking good. Brush any extra dirt off of there. Perfect. Count our tools. 4 clamps. All the tips are there. We're in there. Now let's pack the pilot chute and go for a jump. First, take all the twists out of the bridle till you get to the mesh of the pilot chute. Make what we call the mushroom. Check out the ZP. Make sure there's no holes in it. Lay the hat of the mushroom down on the ground, making a circle. And we're going to take the mesh then and fold it up in half so that the knot where the bridle attaches is right underneath the hat that you grab when you go stowed. Make large folds in the bridle, the full length of that folded mesh, until you get to a full arm's length from the bottom of the pilot chute to the rig. We'll explain why in just a second. Okay, your hand is gripping the top folds of the bridle and the mesh. You're going to bring that ZP down and around that hand. Get that hand out of there. You'll end up with a nice tight cylinder. That cylinder needs to be about the size of the BOC so it fills out the BOC nicely, and the pilot chute itself wants to stuff all the way down into the bottom of the BOC. Okay, now you're making short folds for that arm's length of the bridle, and that is so that when you go stowed, those smaller folds are not underneath your hand where you're grabbing the hat. Those larger folds are underneath your hand. You don't want to go out and pull your pin, or the pilot chute's going to get pulled out of your hand. Now you're going to stuff that pilot chute down into the BOC. See, it fills out almost the whole BOC. That's going to prevent it from falling out when you're walking out to the object. And you just take that remainder of the bridle and stuff it just underneath that side flap. Protect it away from the pilot chute handle so you don't accidentally grab it when you go stowed. Nice handle there. And that's it, folks. Let's get a little close-up of that pilot chute and get unpacked.